For criteria 7 of our workplace assessment, we need to carry out some questions. So, after the observation, we have observed our learner within their working role. Okay, and before we give them their results, okay, on their workplace assessment performance, we need to carry out a series of questions just to ensure that we are confident that not only can they demonstrate their skills of their day-to-day working role, but they can also explain their day-to-day working role, and they can demonstrate their knowledge of their working role. So what we need to do here is we need to plan a minimum of 5 questions, maximum of 6. And we need to ask these questions after the assessment observation. Okay. Just a couple of things on the questions. All questions should be relevant to the assessment criteria and standards. Okay. So once again, please have a look back at your criteria and standards. These are mine. Okay. And you have to make your questions relevant to the standards and criteria as well. So please keep them in mind. So of course, we don't want to catch the learner out. Okay, that's not our role as an assessor, but we would like to plan these questions which are relevant to their role. Always important to record the learner's answer to each question that you ask. And just as a reminder, just out of courtesy, please ask questions away from the assessment area within a quiet location. So this could be an office, for example. Questions should be asked in private, okay? And so you and your learner can obviously discuss the questions as well. All right. So just in terms of the template, we have a series of questions, 1 to 6. Please do feel free to write some more questions if you wish. And also on the right-hand side, we have the evidence reference column as well. So this, once again, is very similar to your observation reports, and we are going to map our questions to the criteria. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type out some questions which are relevant to the assessment by Luke. Okay. And I've also got his answers. Okay. Which I'm going to write down as well. But just for the purpose of this assessment, I'm going to write out some questions and just demonstrate mapping to my criteria. So question 1, okay, simply who is responsible for the health and safety of the vehicle and yards. Okay, question number 1. Now, very important that we map this to our criteria. So my criteria for this question is 1.1. Okay, and that demonstrates mapping. The question is relevant to my criteria. Okay, so my criteria is here. 1.1, identify health and safety responsibilities as they relate to your role. Okay, very important. We've demonstrated mapping there. Question 2, okay, I am going to come up with my second question. So what specific areas, faults are you looking for when you carry out the vehicle check? Okay. And once again, I'm just going to put in the criteria. So that's criteria 2. And this is the daily vehicle check sheets. So you can obviously put the number of criteria, but you could also add a comment as well. Okay, and that's going to give the reader some more information there as we go along. So I've written 2 so far. Okay, and I will complete 6 in total. Okay, next question is how often are vehicle checks carried out? Okay, just going to edit the question font there, and please do write in your own font as well. And then question 3, I'm going to put criteria 1.1 and 1.1 and 2.6. So just for that question there, for example, if your questions do map to 2 criteria, do feel free to put that in as well. So it doesn't have to be 1 criteria. If it meets the standard for 2, then that is fine as well. Okay. So question 4, okay, is what PPE is needed? Oh, excuse me. Let's have a quick look. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, what PPE is needed as a driver? Question mark. So once again, do feel free to edit the font as we go along. And I am going to put in there, that is going to be 1.3. So it's relevant to criteria 1.3. Let's have a quick look again. Understand the requirements for PPE in your role. So it's relevant to the criteria there. So once again, we're being objective as an assessor. 2 more, and I think that is going to be absolutely fine. So question 5, do you have first aid provision? Okay. Do you have first aid provision as a driver? Okay, so again, you might need to edit the form and move it around just a tad there. And that's mapped to criteria 2.9, first aid provision. We can have a look there. Just going back to the criteria. So it's relevant to safety equipment. So that's all to do with first aid as well. Okay, so 2.9. Final question is what is the procedure if you find faults on the vehicle? Okay, so just 6 questions which are relevant to the learner's role, and we're not catching them out. Their answers could be very simple and straightforward. Once again, I'm just mapping it to the criteria there. Okay, so in terms of the questions then, I've planned for 6 questions. I've mapped them to my criteria, nice and simple there, as you can see. And we just have the section underneath. We have the answers, okay? So this hypothetically, this assessment has taken place, and I'm just writing up my notes. But if you are in the live observation, okay, you ask a question, you allow for the learner to have a think, and they will respond with their answer. So you're just going to write down their response, their answer. Do feel free the need to rephrase any questions if you need to. They might be confused by the question. That's absolutely fine. So do rephrase it as well. So I'm just going to put down just the answers that Luke provides there. So question 1, who is responsible for the health and safety of the vehicle and yard? The answer that Luke said is everyone. And you might need to do this because you'll have to type up your answers. Okay. So once again, it just requires a little bit of editing there. Question 2 is what specific areas faults are you looking for when you carry out the vehicle check? Okay. So his answer was, and you can see this, so chunks of tires and also headlights not working as well. Okay, so just be mindful that you are writing down the exact response from the learner. Okay, question 3, coming on to this. So how often are vehicle checks carried out? And Luke's answer is daily. So every time you go out in a vehicle, you have not driven that day. Okay, so you are writing this very much word for word. And even if the learner is giving you the incorrect answer, that's fine. You go to write down their response, and you can discuss this after with them in terms of the feedback. So I'm just going to finish off the remaining questions now. Question 4, what PPE is needed as a driver? Okay, so it's typically a high vis jacket, boots, hard hats for when unloading the crane. Okay, just coming on to number 5 and 6, and then we're done. Okay, so do you have first aid provision? So small first aid kits in each vehicle and a larger one at each branch. Okay. And finally, our final question, what is the procedure if you find faults on the vehicle? Once again, it's mapped to 2.6 there. So noted on vehicle check sheets, then reported to your manager. Vehicle will not be driven until fault is fixed. Okay. So there we have it. This is my Q&A section. So obviously, this is me typing up the questions and answers, which is relevant to my assessment. Do feel free to change the font. You can change the color. So perhaps the assessor yourself could be written in a certain color or font. And the answer to the questions could be written in red, for example, to demonstrate the learner's response. Okay. So once again, aim for 5 to 6 questions. Ask the questions somewhere in private. Okay. So you and the learner can hear each other as well. And just remember to write down the response and map it to the criteria. Okay. So I hope you found this video useful, and we will then go on to our next section as well.